All right, so welcome and thanks for tuning into this webinar for busy lawyers. These monthly webinars are designed to bring you practical information in 20 to 30 minutes that you can implement immediately in your practice. Today I have the pleasure of introducing Charity Anastasio from the Maryland State Bar Association, where she's the Director of Law Office Management Assistance. She was in solo practice for 5 years and then moved to the Washington State Bar to help lawyers figure out how to manage their practices more effectively. She was there for 3 years, and now she's been in Maryland for a year. And I'll turn this over to Charity in just a minute. But one quick note first, after announcing this webinar, we heard from an IP lawyer some of you may be familiar with. Kelly Poria of Logicate has presented for us when we ran webinars under the lunch hour legal marketing concept. And those were longer programs that only addressed marketing, so they basically changed into these webinars. Kelly has since presented at LMA and Suffolk Law using the words, "You are their Yoda," to reflect the role of a lawyer as a guide. So while Charity chose that phrase with no awarenesses to Kelly's work, no affiliation, we are happy to note that you also may be interested in learning more about how Kelly at Logicate can help you develop your ability to serve as your client's Yoda. Now, before I turn it over to Charity, I'd like to let you know that we will have time at the end to take questions from attendees, so please put any questions that you have in the chat box at any point that they occur to you, and I will relay those to Charity at the very end. So Charity, take it away.
Thank you, Rachel, and thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to talking about this. This is one of my favorite topics, so I always start with, well, what are we getting out of this? What are we doing it for? And I will just say, Yoda, you can substitute in, you are their guide or their educator. It's just a different way of thinking about your relationship with your client. So there's a number of reasons that make sense for the practitioner to do this. For one, it engages potential clients and clients, gets them interested in the process. It educates them about what's going to happen. It also gives them a structure to the procedure, both on the client end and on the lawyer end. If you build out your check sheet for yourself, there's no harm in sharing it with the client. That just gives both of you some point of reference where you are both on the same page. It also, though, can fundamentally give you a deeper connection with the client and help you manage that case and that client relationship in a what I call holistic manner or wraparound manner, where you are addressing more issues than just the legal issue that they have. I think that it gives both parties actually a perspective on the other party's experience too. So I think that it offers you an opportunity to walk in the shoes of your client, which is always going to make you a better lawyer for that client. It also gives your client a deeper understanding of who you are as a practitioner and what needs you actually may have as well. And then I think that in the long run, it's better service and therefore it gives you more referrals. The other thing that I always ask, though, is why is it that we do this? And I think that the clearest reason that I can come up with is because it is what clients want. It is what clients ask for, and it is actually what clients need. Now, many of the reviews out there, I think that a lawyer would give another lawyer would be things like, boy, they have brilliant arguments in court. They are succinct writers. They are very clean, concise presenters. They are good advocates. But many of the times the things that clients say about their lawyers are much more almost emotionally driven. They say things like, he showed me the way through my case. He held my hand through this process. We couldn't have done it without him. He showed me what things meant. And I just want to put out there that hand-holding is an undervalued skill and an undervalued ability. All of us have different levels of skill attribution, and many may think, ugh, I hate doing the hand-holding. But the things that I'm going to describe to you are things that are tools that you can create and skills that you can develop. And even if you hate the process, if you give them certain structured ways of doing it, then it is less of a struggle to make that hand-holding a thing. So without further ado, my first point is to set the stage from the very beginning. This happens in the first meeting. You discuss your expectations in that first meeting of them and the expectations that they may have of you. For example, I'm a firm believer in writing scripts of that first meeting if it is a tough conversation to have, especially. So some script may be, are you responsive to voicemail, or should I text you instead? Or maybe you are adamantly against texting and you say, I will actually not respond to your text, so please do not text me. The best way to communicate with me is by phone. The best way to communicate with me is by email. I will respond to phone calls during the week before 6 p.m., after 6 p.m., or on the weekends. I ask that you only text me because that is the best way to communicate an emergency to me, if you have an emergency during those times. Really, this conversation is one that you have to decide what is appropriate for your practice area and your practice itself and your way of life. And then make sure that you communicate it to that potential client. And then in return, I think it's appropriate to ask them what their communication norm preferences are. And this is partly to give you a better sense of whether or not this client is the right client for you, whether it's going to be a good match or whether your communication norms clash and you will always find them difficult to deal with because they're going to be expecting more of you than you would want them to. Or maybe they're completely uncommunicative and disappear. I'm actually working on materials for this particular presentation right now. They will be sent to you and also be available at the place where this recording will exist, which Rachel will know more about. But one of those things that is in there are just a couple scripts that you could have in that conversation. And then also reiterating that conversation in your fee agreement. So I am a firm believer that every fee agreement should include language that says what you are going to expect of the client as far as communication is, and then what they can expect from you also in your representation. So there's a couple examples in those materials about what type of language you could have. It may say something like, I expect you to be reasonably available to me. That may include being available on weekends, determining what that situation is. And then establish yourself in this conversation as the guide through the experience of this legal case or this legal situation that they have. And that is, in many ways, just saying, I am here to educate you. I am putting on my educator, my advisor or counselor hat. And I think all of these things that I actually talk about will be part and parcel of that. Another potential way that you can set up this relationship and actually empower the client, and every time you can empower the client and make them more of a partner with you in their experience than just a victim of the experience, I think that you are going to find a better relationship and a better way to communicate with them. One way that you can do this is to set up a client portal and then make sure that you really educate them on how to use it from the very beginning. So maybe in that first meeting or right after you sign the agreement with them, you give them their password and their logon. You show them how to log on. You have a screen or a laptop in your office and you say, this is where you log on. Show them how to use it, what they are going to do in there. Tell them about how they will receive email notifications when something is posted to the client portal that they are supposed to look at or respond to. Give them an assignment of signing on and choosing their password if that is the way that that client portal is set up. And then tell them also some best practices of what they can and cannot do in the client portal, for example. Maybe you have a particular client portal that allows them to make comments on a document, but not share it with somebody else. So it certainly is a good thing for them to know that they can't send it to Aunt Lucy without you getting a notification asking whether or not they should, and maybe telling them why they shouldn't be sending it to Aunt Lucy in the first place is a good idea. I think that wherever you can be transparent and empowering with them, you're going to do them a service and you a service as well. And discuss the benefits of this empowerment. The truth is you may have to sell the client portal to certain clients. That may mean that that's not a good client fit for you, or it may just mean that you need to set them up from the very beginning with all of the tools that they need in order to communicate with you through this particular method. A script that could go along those lines is, the reason why I use a client portal is because I'm not confident that email is secure enough for the type of communications that we have. I want them to be protected and confidential. I know that this is the best way to do it. So even though it means that you need to have another logon and another password, which I know nobody wants, the truth is this is the best way for me to represent you and know that all the communications cannot be hacked. That's just an example. Another way that you can make sure that you, and again, I've talked a little bit about choosing the right client for you, but sometimes it's also giving them what they need in different ways, because not all of us learn the same way. So giving clients visual representations of what it is that they're going to experience can be profound. And my example here, Is It Hearsay, is by this nice person. I just thought it was a beautiful way of displaying this particular issue. But maybe the visuals that you are going to use are things like, you do estate planning. They have a complicated estate plan where they have 3 different potential executors. They have 5 different people that are going to potentially receive money depending on who survives and who doesn't. And then they have some bequests to different charities. So maybe mapping that in a visual manner as well as written will be beneficial for them to truly understand what it is that is happening in their estate plan as you draft it. Because we actually, generally, people understand visual representations and remember them better than they do written. It doesn't mean that it is going to work for everybody. I think that some people learn very well from written, but giving them more than one option of the way that you display this is a really great way to work with your clients. Another way to do this is giving them a chart through the case. Your case is going to start here in this particular court. We are going to first file this visual motion, and that may have this result or this result. And then this will happen, and then we will go to court. And depending on the result, we will appeal. And even if that appeal is outside of the fee agreement arrangement and the scope of representation, you may say, and eventually you could appeal, and this is the direction. And then actually indicate to them that that's outside the scope of representation. Maybe put it in a different color. So just giving them a full, big picture, macrocosm of their experience, and then a way for them to delve deeper into this, where they could point and say, what about this? What does this mean? Think that this is, instead of a particular tool, this is just a technique of working with the client where you always bring them back to where they are in that time, where they are in that particular saga of the case. The best, I got this trick from somebody else. Many of my ideas are recycled because you hear them from other lawyers, or you use them sort of in your practice, or you figured them out by not using them, and you go, wow, I really wish I had done this way. One of the best techniques I've ever heard is that you give them that timeline of their case, And then every time you meet with them, you pull that same piece of paper out that has the timeline and you say, let's orient ourselves in where we are in your case. And you say, we went through this part where we did discovery, and we went through this part where they did discovery, and we went through this part, and then we went through this part, and now we are right here. Do you have any questions about what happened before? Okay, good. Let's talk about what's going to happen next. And this is just phenomenally good at getting people centered in the here and now of what it is that you really want them to work on, I think. And then the final thing is give people assignments in writing. I did estate planning, which is a really nice practice area, and clients are usually happy when they leave, which is so nice. But I also did family law, and I noticed that people's ears were somehow turned off sometimes. They were so stuck in the emotions of their situation that I was pretty certain they only grasped about 5% of what it is that we talked about, even in the first meeting, which is pretty straightforward stuff. And that would vary depending upon the person's education, but in the long run with family law, it would always happen that they would not hear the things that I said. So the only way I found to really be successful in giving them particular things that I needed them to do, like bring in certain paperwork to me, was to give it to them in writing. I also think that it gives those assignments a heavier weight for them. It says, oh, this is essential. I really must do this because it is bulleted or it is numbered in this list. It says 1 first, 2 first, 3 first, must produce these things. And it helps them remember what it is that you said, because a lot of the time we are using language that they are not used to. It reaffirms that they are a partner in their case, that they are empowered to do certain things on their own. And I think that giving them some things to go away with, which can certainly be electronic, it doesn't have to be a piece of paper, gives people a sense of security, though. It's something for them to hold on to that says, I have representation, I have certain steps. And then, of course, we have to admit it's always a good idea to cover our own tails and make sure that we can honestly point to, no, I told them this is exactly what we needed, or I asked them specifically for that. And it's another point of reference that you can always bring them back to. I asked you for this, this, and this. You only brought me A. Can you bring me B and C this time? Visual representations of that particular thing is essential. So many of these things are things that I know you guys are using already, but it gives you just a few minutes to get some fresh ideas. And then the particular materials that I write, they're not going to be terribly long, but they will also just give you another perspective of a way that you can phrase things, or a different way that you can maybe display that particular thing that you want them to know about. And now I'm open for questions if anybody has them. Any questions, Rachel?
So far, I don't see any, but I do want to thank you for the excellent presentation. I think you gave us great reasons and methods to improve client engagement. Let's see, while we wait to see if anyone else might have any questions.
And my last thing that I will say is, if these are all things you go, oh, I do that and I do that and I do that, I hope that you're congratulating yourself right now, because I think that that is a good client management. That relationship needs that connection and that fostering. Like I said at the beginning, the things that clients say about their attorneys, well, I'm sure that they often do say, wow, he argued like a bulldog in court sometimes. They also say, he took me through my case. She made me understand what it really meant for this to happen. And I learned so much in the process. I know somebody that became a lawyer because she liked her divorce lawyer. So there you go. We do good work, and we do more than just advocate in court and write really well.
Right. So Rick would like to know if there's a particular client portal software that you recommend.
Rick, that's a great question. So usually I will say I like to have more of a conversation with somebody before I recommend a particular one, because every one of those products is different and there's a slew of different things to consider. I think that a few good ones to look at are Rocket Matter, Clio. There's some really great aspects of Box, not Dropbox, but Box.com. There's a few others too. But I think that the main thing is you need to think about what you need in the practice as a whole. And I'll tell you that most of them, their client portals are pretty similar. So that's usually not my number one concern. Of course, you have to like the way that it looks. My case is another good one to compare.
Great recommendations. I don't see any other questions popping up, but I would encourage Rick and anyone else looking for particular recommendations. Like Charity, our advisors like to give personal recommendations. So if you do have questions, please contact us. We're happy to facilitate answers. So with no other questions, I will say that we'll email you all directly. Anyone that signed up for this webinar will get an email with the materials that Charity's sharing, and you can expect those before you'll likely see us post the full recording of today's presentation, although we will certainly do that too as soon as possible. And you'll see that at our website, masslowmap.org. So thank you all for watching, and stay tuned for next month's webinar. Have a terrific afternoon. Thank you so much, Charity.
Thank you. Have a good one all.
Thank you.